We live. Let me make sure I'm up here. What's happening, people? Hold on, let me make sure I see myself. It's probably a bit of a delay. Let's see, it's showing up. It says it's waiting. There we go. About a 20-something second delay. We live. Let me make. All right, audio's good. Audio's actually pretty good. Bring it up a bit more, tad bit more, so that way y'all can hear me. Been messing up on that here recently. Whoops. Just undid my mic. That ain't good. What's happening, everybody? It's your boy Chef Bay here. Let me center myself. It's your boy Chef Bay here. Decided to come to you today to talk about retirement. Okay, I had a recent discussion with somebody about this, but I've had this discussion with a lot of people, and a lot of times retirement seems like a thing that we want to blame ourselves for, which of course we have to take accountability in our retirement. You know, it's our responsibility to figure out when to save, how much to save, and where to put it. But as we go into these clips, videos, and then we're gonna do a long documentary, I'm gonna take certain parts out of that documentary, fair use. I'm gonna take certain parts out of that documentary and try to commentate on them. But it's gonna be a lot of it, because I'm not gonna lie to you. A lot of that documentary by PBS Frontline was very informative and very interesting on so many different levels. So we're gonna start off with, and then at the end, I'm gonna give you some possible solutions for the future. I don't wanna always just be doom and gloom, like, oh, look at this shit, it's happening, oh man, watch out, you know, the world's coming for you. I also wanna make sure that I offer up options and solutions for the future. Not saying that it's a for sure thing, but you can take this information, disseminate it yourself in your own brain, and if you want to work on something, feel free, you know. So I'm just here to kind of impart information. So we're gonna go ahead and jump into some clips and see how we're doing here. Let me go ahead and bring y'all over to the screen. I'm gonna go ahead and let this play, but let me mute that so I'm not messing up anything, so that way I can keep up with my folks, you know. All right. So first things first, we're gonna watch a video called How to Save for a Secure Retirement. Now, first things I wanted to do was pull news reports from your normal local news, your national news channels, even though a lot of it can be propaganda. I wanted to pull those things because those are some of the more so-called reputable sources than others, at least to people, to the masses. But we're going to go into some of these, and then we'll compare them to the PBS documentary and what we find from there, because these are going to be trying to tell you how to do it, the things you shouldn't do and should do, and they're trying to give you quick solutions. You know how they do on these news channels. They bring in some so-called expert. You got 3 minutes. Tell me what's the best solution you have for us. It's like, come on now, in 3 minutes? Either way, let's take a look and see what they're talking about. Oops, sorry. Hold on, guys. You're not going to hear that unless I plug this in. Okay, sorry. Let me get my life together, huh?
As we continue looking at our uncertain economy, there are questions about how to best save for retirement. Lana Zach joins us now to explain some options.
Hey there, Matt. You may have heard that the best time to start saving for retirement is yesterday, because according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 2/3 of households approaching retirement have not saved enough.
2/3 of the households in the United States have not saved enough, according to the Bureau of Labor. I can't talk today. The Bureau of Labor Statistics. Goodness, that's pretty startling.
The problem is confusion over how to save. So let's dive into 401ks and IRAs to empower you to understand your retirement resources. All right, a 401k is an account set up by your workplace. You choose how much money per paycheck to put aside for retirement. The average 401k contribution is about 7% of a yearly income.
The average is about 7% of a yearly income. I'm gonna do this real quick. The typical income in the United States, we'll actually Google that so you all can see me Google it. Average U.S. Income. Whoa, as of 2019, it was 31,000. Income in the United States as of 2021. I don't know where's the Census Bureau, but they're gonna have it in a bunch of. Let me find an article that might just kind of throw it at us real quickly. At least they have it by age here. Annual wages. Wow, I mean, if you're between 20 and 20 years old, you're back about 38,000. Okay. 52K for your average 25 to 34-year-old. About 65, 63K, the higher you go up. Looks like 60 in the 60s is about your peak. But that's later on in life, you know. So you could say, let's say we start saving 4% of 52,000. 52,000 times 0.04. That's $2,000 a year. $2,080 a year. $2,080 a year. $2,080 a year times, let's say, 30 years. That's $62,000. Now, let's keep going, but $62,000 obviously ain't going to get you there to retirement, but let's keep going.
Many financial experts encourage investing between 10 to 15%.
You're going to have to. And even then, at that number, let's just say if you double this number, that'll give you 14%, 124,000. Okay? In 30 years or something.
Afford it. Employers may also contribute to the program, usually adding a specific percentage or, this is key, matching.
If they match it and you do the 10, 20%, now you're in a 200K range, 250, maybe 3.
Contributions. That's money that you don't want to leave on the table. An IRA is a retirement account that you open yourself and grow over decades until your retirement. If you're younger than 50, you can contribute up to $6,000 a year. Older Americans have an annual limit.
Is it up to, like, is that, I really need to look this up. I didn't look this up prior. But if you can only contribute up to $6,000 a year, 10 years of that is $60,000. 30 years of that would be times 3, 180. You should have the option because you're gonna need more. I can guarantee you're gonna need more money than that.
Of $7,000. Both 401ks and IRAs generally fall into two categories, traditional and Roth. The main difference is when you pay taxes on those funds. For a traditional account, the contributions are tax deductible now, but you will eventually pay taxes when that money is withdrawn.
Basically, what they're going into with from what I believe, the IRA, the Roth IRA, basically allows you to lock in the current tax rates. So that way, when you pay your, when you take the money out later, you're just going to be locked into these tax rates instead of possible future tax rates. With 401ks, you're going to be subjected to possible future tax rates. So if the tax rate at the time is higher by 5%, now you're paying 5% more. It could be lower though, and it could save you as well. So you're taking a gamble either way. Not really a gamble, but
With a Roth IRA, you pay the tax bill up front on the amount invested. In general, You want the traditional option if you think that you're going to be in a lower tax bracket during retirement. If you're starting off your career, you may want to opt for a Roth. And remember, of course, the most important thing is that savings are compounded. So the more you save now, the more your nest egg will continue to grow.
Now, they talk a lot, and it goes a lot about compound interest. And I think I want to have a separate episode about that because I really need to dive further into what is compound interest. My thing is, I'm really curious as where the money comes from. You know, obviously you invest into 401ks, which goes to the stock market eventually, and then those stocks can go up or down and cause differences in your retirement funds. But I guess they say compound interest, so you would earn interest on your investments, and so I guess the interest compounds over time. Which what they mean by that, I believe, is you put in 1,000, and then at the end of that year, let's say that 1,000 has turned into 1,100, so your compounding interest would have been $100, and so now you have 1,100, which is growing, adding interest to that instead of just the 1,000. So the next time you're gonna get a little bit more. So I do see what they mean by that. And how it can go up over time, but we'll keep going.
Future.
Lana Zak, thank you. Now we have the basics of the most common retirement plans, so let's talk about how to build them up and how much people need it. For more, Harold Pollack joins me now. He's a professor at the University of Chicago and a co-author of The Index Card: Why Personal Finance Doesn't Have to Be Complicated. All right, Harold, so if someone started a 401k at the age of, say, 30 and plans to retire at around 65, how much money should be in their retirement account?
Well, I think that we all should try to save absolutely as much as we can. You know, the 401k is the absolute workhorse. I think most of us believe that the employer side and the employee side should add up.
My thing is, why is the 401k the workhorse? I get it, the compounding interest. I get it, the stock market. I get it with other things. And we're going to get into that. It's going to break down that stuff later in the documentary. But also, what I'm really getting at is, why are these like the only two options for us to save? I guess other than just having it in a bank account that earns a little bit of interest over time. They're not really going into any other options. But I guess if you're trying to grow your money instead of just having it sit, there's so many options, but I feel like in today's time, there's more options to figure out ways to grow your money. All things are going to assume some bit of risk, I believe, but there's got to be other ways.
About 20% of your pre-tax income for you to be able to retire in a way that's kind of consistent with the lifestyle that you've had as a worker. By the way, that was such a wonderful primer that we just heard. I hope all of your viewers were watching closely, because I just thought that was an excellent description of the basics of it. And so, ironically, a lot of people call me and ask me questions, what should I invest in? That's actually the easy part. You just invest in low-fee index funds in your 401k or your Roth IRA.
Low-fee index funds. Notice he did at least say low fee. That'll be something talked about later. But at least he did bring it up.
You really try to do absolutely as much as you can. You know, if you're under the age of 50, you can save up to $21,000 per year in your 401k. If you're over that, you can save about $27,000. And you know, if you just start early and take advantage of that compounding, that just makes a huge difference. I only wish I had done that in my own life. I must say, I started around age 40, and it's really hard to catch up. You know, when you lose all the benefit of that early compounding.
And that adds up. I mean, once you start to do that at an earlier age, especially. So how much money does the average person need to retire?
Well, you know, I think that's a funny question because
one thing I will say is they do this often. They go in, they don't really give you a number. How much do you think is the best number, you know, amount for people to have in their savings? Which I do understand it is going to be kind of different for everybody. If you're in your if you're just about to retire and you don't have a house that's fully paid off, you're still paying on the house, you got some debt still to deal with. You got medical bills, maybe depending on your situation. Now you're probably gonna need more than maybe a person that already has a house paid off. They're debt free. They don't have a whole lot of monthly expenses, things of that nature. So they don't have to use as much of that retirement money in order to stay afloat for the year. So let's keep going.
I would like to say everybody should have $1 million when they retire. That's not always possible because, of course, most of us have the income that we have. But I would say saving 20% of your income is really important, and finding ways to get your mojo.
Hey, that percentage keeps going up, right? Went from 7% to a really they want you to say recommended 10 to 15, and this dude just said 20. But after you see them numbers earlier that I just ran on the average yearly salary, in America, average income, I'm sorry, then you start to notice that you're gonna need a lot more money. You're gonna need a lot more percentage saved, and that's hard to do at these national averages, and that's something that'll go for later.
Save effectively is just so important. It's partly watching the big things like your home and your car, and it's also finding ways to be methodical and just to stay at it, slow and steady, and find ways. We all know our own vulnerabilities and what motivates us as individuals, to save effectively. So, I was talking with one of the people that I work with at the University of Chicago. She's a single mom. She has pretty modest income. And, we were talking about how she could best save. And it turns out that the Roth IRA that was just described as a great option for her. One of the things that we talked about is how she can really, on a day-to-day basis, save her money. And one of the things we talked about was there's a really beautiful sweater in the window of one of the fancy shops in Chicago on the Magnificent Mile. It was a $140 sweater. And it was really tempting to buy that sweater, but she was realizing, that's really not a very smart thing for me to be doing. I should be saving with that money. And so we talked about it. I said, why don't you bring your daughter with you? And you can look at that nice sweater and you can say to your daughter, that sweater would be awesome for me. It goes perfectly with my skin tone. It's great, but I'm not going to buy that sweater. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take that $140 and I'm going to put it in your college account. Yeah. And someday you're going to do that for your daughter. And now you've taken this moment where I have to.
I like what he did there. He said he's going to go ahead and take that money and put it into our college account. But we're talking about retirement. Your daughter's college is not really, unfortunately, going to pay for your retirement. But of course, it could help. But you also don't want to depend on your kids for retirement. But I do give. I really like the way that he explained that and how he's able to give options without victim blaming per se. I love the way he delivered that. You know what? He could have just said, like Dr. Umar and some of these motherfuckers do. You know what? Y'all spend too much money on George. You spend $3 billion on George. You spend all this money on alcohol, all this money on clubbing and stuff. Just naming off the most ratchet of ratchet stuff that you do, that some of the ratchet people do. Whereas he took an example of just a lady who wanted to get a $143 sweater. That's an expensive sweater. But, and instead of talking shit like, oh, you just buying $143 a sweater, what kind of crazy shit are you? You can go get a $20 sweater, and this is your problem. Instead of doing that, he actually gave her a solution on what you can do in order to scratch that itch, if you will, of wanting to buy something and still being able to hopefully get something in fulfillment out of it as you put that money back. Because typically, when you put the money back in an account, you throw it in there and you may feel good, but if you add a personal experience onto it with that savings, I can see how they can not only help make the moment a little bit better for you, but at the same time, it may help to strengthen your savings willpower in the future.
I deny myself something, which is not that fun, and I made it into a really cool parenting moment that my daughter's going to remember, that I'm going to remember. And so thinking about, how can I save most effectively so that I can take advantage of that 401k and the Roth IRA. The Roth IRA is such a great option because it gives you that strategic reserve. As was mentioned, you can the money that you put in, you can actually take out without penalty if you need it, if you have a family emergency or something like that. And the investment gains that you get will never be taxed.
Okay, so he's pretty much on the end of that. All right, let's go to the next clip. Okay, this is by News on 6, one of these states, local news. It's not too long. Let's see what they talk about.
It is Money Monday, and today we're talking about saving for retirement. Our financial expert, Paul Hood with Hood CPAs, joins us this afternoon. Paul, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is the one topic that is so important, but you don't really think about it, especially if you're at the beginning of your career. Retirement seems like it's so far off. Oh, I've got time.
Right.
But how important is it to be saving for your future?
Well, there's studies that show that if you've got an 18-year-old and he starts saving now and saves for 10 years, and you have somebody that
Paul Hood of Hood CPAs. Imagine pulling up, you see this mofo. You're like, that's not what I thought this was going to be.
28 and saves for 30 years, but doesn't start till he's 28, the 18-year-old will end up having more money even though he's saved for less time. The concept of compounding, the quicker you get it going, the better. And people don't understand that. They think, well,
Everybody is harping on this compound interest. And yes, it does go up. But we'll talk about it a little bit more.
they think retirement, oh my gosh, I'm 25 or whatever. It's,
right.
You know, who knows, it's 40 years from now. But retirement doesn't take age, it takes money. And so I try to teach my clients, you know what those little yellow minion dudes are, little cartoon dudes?
Yeah.
If you think of minions as, you know, they work, and then they compound. And as soon as you get enough minions, you can buy your time back. So retirement takes money, not age. And so the quicker you do it, the quicker you can retire.
I love thinking about it in those terms. I think another thing that really, at least for me, that trips me up when thinking about saving and what that means is there's a lot of numbers and a lot of letters. You've got the 401k, you've got the IRA, but there's a difference between the two. Tell us what those differences are.
Well, the primary difference is how much you can put in them. See, people go through two phases of life. And the first phase of life when it comes to money is an accumulation phase. So in an accumulation phase, risk and volatility are your friend. You want to harness risk. So for instance, if I buy a stock and it's for $50 or $100 and 30 days later it's worth $50, that's down.
Playing the stock market, and I'm not a fan of the stock market.
50%. But if I put another $100 in, then I get to buy 2 shares now. So now my cost basis is only about 65. So a concept called dollar cost averaging comes into play to where you've got to put money in every month. And so if your investments are high, yay. If they're low, double yay, because you're buying things on sale. And it's just you set it and forget it, and it just accumulates.
Well, and that's the thing. You set it and forget it.
See, and that's what I don't like about a lot of this. And we're going to see later why you just don't set it and forget it, because they want you to do that. But that's just what they do. It just keeps going up. What about if it goes down? I had to go up. Wait a minute. Anything that can go up can likely go down.
You are making an investment, you're thinking long term, because when you take a look at the stock market, if you want to get into the weeds a bit, it's long-term gains. It is a gain. It is going to go up. It's not something that you're going to be checking every day, nor should you really.
No, you shouldn't, because the average person.
Don't check it. Don't think about that. Don't do it every day. Of course, don't every day, but still want to check.
Irrational when it comes to investing. They sell when the market's going down and buy when it's going up. Completely opposite of what you do. You should get excited when the market's down, when you're in that accumulation phase, because you're buying things on sale.
See it as an opportunity,
exactly
as opposed to getting emotional. And money is an emotional thing. That's just how it is.
It is.
Is there a target number that you should be saving, or depending on where you are in your career, how old you are, is there a magic number to be putting in, or a magic number that you should hit that would be a good time to go ahead and retire?
Well, so on both ends. One, a good target is about 10% minimum. If you can save 10%, live on less than what you bring home, save that 10%, is a pretty good number. But the way you figure out how much you're going to need is you figure out how much do you need to spend. And so if that's $50,000 a year, you divide that by approximately 4%, and that's the number you need to retire. Now, if you need $50,000 a year and you're going to get $20,000 from Social Security, then you take $30,000 divided by 4%, and then you can back into it. You always start with the end in mind to determine, and then you just say, all right, I want to retire in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. You can determine how much you need to put back.
Always good advice, Paul. Thank you so much.
All right, we got a couple others. He kind of didn't. He gave a number. He kind of gave some options, talking about 40% or whatever of your 4% of your. I would think it would be 40% of your yearly. You know, that's kind of confusing. My thing is, if your bills are gonna, if you're living currently off about $30K a year right now, maybe $40K a year, you're gonna want to do it. Try to live off of $30K a year in your retirement, year. So that means you're gonna have to have $30K times, let's say if you live for another 20 years, from 65 to 85. You need $30K for 20 years. 30K times 20 years. Let's do the math. $600,000 is what you would need right there. To live on $30K a year, so for 20 years. So, it's you may not need that exact amount. It also depends on where you're at. Now, if you're currently living on $30K a year, but you have a mortgage, if that mortgage is going to be paid off by the time you're done and retired, then you may not need that $30K because your mortgage is your biggest cost monthly. Where we stay, period, is pretty much our biggest cost. Next biggest cost is the car. So if you can get that car paid off and you have your house paid off, now you just got to worry about mostly your upkeep, your normal utilities and bills, and small things, and of course eating, which is something that we do every day. So, but you won't need as much. So prepping yourself, getting to that point is a big thing, And it sounds easy, but in today's times, when you have 30-year mortgages, a 30-year mortgage, if you get that bitch in your 30s, it's just going to carry you to your 60s. And that's if you get lucky to pay it off in your 60s. If you don't have any slowdowns, no issues with work, whatever the case may be, if you don't have to refinance to try to save your ass, if you didn't refinance to try to take some money out of the inequity and try to use it for something, and now you started the clock over. There's so many things that could really fuck up in that 30 years to put it all on that one thing. It's not all on that one thing. I'm sorry, I'm thinking of something else. But to try to make sure that can be paid off in a 30-year span. So it's like, man, really, to be honest, not only do you have to pay things off exactly on time, have hardly no issues where you have to dip into things, but on top of that, you have to save and absorb quite a bit amount of money in order to get there. So life is already seeming like it's a big bowl of fucking responsibility and crazy shit, But let's keep going and see a couple more clips, and then we'll get to the documentary.
Harper, on your side. I'm Gary Harper, on your side. Are you saving enough for retirement? And how do you know for sure? A recent survey that was just released says many workers say they're confident that they will have enough. That's what we're talking about on the On Your Side podcast. Retirement is commonly referred to as the golden years, but it may not be so golden if you don't have enough retirement savings.
Well, we found that we saw the biggest drop in our confidence in this survey that we've been doing for over 30 years. And the last time we had this type of drop was 2007 to 2008. And if you remember that time, that was when we went into recession.
Craig Copeland joins us on the On Your Side podcast. He's with the Employee Benefit Research Institute, a nonprofit and nonpartisan organization out of D.C. He says only 64% of workers feel confident that they'll have enough saved and blame inflation for their concerns.
You can't really continue to have these prices increase and think that you're going to be able to continue to pay for them. You can't continue to have your retirement account balances go down and expect to be able to accumulate a significant amount when you hit your retirement.
The average 401k balance right now for workers is around $104,000.
Ooh, the average 401k balance is around 100,000. That's decent, but that can be ate up in 4 or 5 years. And then what?
Those workers turn 65, the amount will only be around $255,000.
$255,000. I mean, I guess it depends on your lifestyle, but at the age of 65, doesn't seem like really a high balance to have at that age.
It is not. You just think about if you need $50,000 a year, 255 is only going to give you 5 years, right? So we really have to think about
What did I say?
how we're going to stretch those dollars and really building up that money.
Hey, it was a great conversation with a lot of pointers about retirement and saving enough.
How you do a 2-minute and then this whole segment was about a minute and some change, probably, without all the beginning and end. And he's like, "Oh, that was some great topics with some great points, dude." We don't need no little sound bite, information. We need full information. But let's go to this next clip.
Most Americans believe they will need to acquire more than $1 million to retire comfortably. But many, including
Now they throwing up them numbers getting bigger, but those numbers are really real.
a significant number of older people, are far from reaching that savings goal. A new survey from financial services firm Credit Karma shows 27% of all Americans have no retirement savings, including 401ks and Roth IRAs. And 27% of these respondents are aged 59 and older. CBS News Money Watch Associate Managing Editor Amy Peakey joins us now. Amy, these are some pretty big statistics that Elaine just rattled off there. Now, you wrote an article for CBSNews.com exploring older Americans' troubling lack of retirement savings and more. So in addition to these statistics, Credit Karma also found about 1 in 5 respondents 59 and older don't even have retirement accounts. That's the highest share of any generation. Why are so many older Americans not prepared financially?
Yeah, it might seem a little bit.
Why are y'all not prepared financially? Why? What's your fault? It's your fault. That just sounds how she kind of framed that.
Surprise, given that boomers started working at a time when pensions were a lot more common than today. Not many workers today have pensions, but it comes down to the fact that throughout the generations, even boomers. A lot of people just don't have access to retirement plans. They don't work for a company that has a 401k or a pension. And so it's been on them to save. And that makes it a lot harder to put away money if your employer isn't offering a plan like that. And I also want to point out that, the boomer generation has a lot of older women who maybe didn't work full time, work part time, or they were more likely to stay at home and raise a family than younger generations. And we know for a fact that older women are less prepared for retirement than older men for that reason. So kind of all those things boil down to the fact that, yes, there are a lot of older Americans heading into retirement without any of their own retirement savings.
And Amy, this survey comes as lawmakers grapple with the health of Social Security. It is on track to be depleted in just 10 years. So
That's more of a just doom and gloom thing. Let's go to this last clip and then we'll get on to the...
I don't like starting on a bad note, but it seems like this talk about inflation eating away at consumer wallets across the country and then this impending recession. How do you tell people out there to prepare for this recession, if you even believe that we're in one?
Yeah, the most important thing really for everybody to understand about their money, whether they are in recession with the economy or we are not, is that you have got to live a life below your means, but within your needs. You've always got to be prepared that something could happen in your own life, like an illness, an accident, a layoff, whatever that may be. And then what would you do? So your goal, no matter what else is happening in the economy, in my opinion, is you have got to get yourself out of credit card debt. You have got to have at least an 8 to 12 month emergency fund. You have to be funding your retirement accounts, and you have to really get a grip on your money and not go, oh my God, we're in recession, we're not, and blame it on anything that's happening out there. You have to take your own power and become powerful within you and take your financial future in your own hands right now by really making wise decisions no matter what else is happening.
You know, I like her energy. Susie Orman really goes hard and should really be advocating for, you know, it's definitely a whole lot of personal responsibility, but that's the way it's been formulated. You know, I mean, retirement, pretty much any kind of money situation technically is our responsibility. But at the same time, we live in a system that's very much highly controlled by these corporations and the government and these banking systems and these games that these people be playing. So it's definitely our responsibility, but at the same time, you know, it's kind of like it's kind of like a horrible playground, a horrible board game that nobody told you the rules. You just got to pick them up as you play. And you better hope you get them all. You better hope you get it soon enough, because that's your ass if you don't.
Given your expertise, do you have a perfect formula for, how much should be in an emergency fund versus how much should be in retirement and how much should be used for discretionary items? What percentage would you suggest?
Yeah, I'm not somebody who believes in you can only put this much here, this much there, because every one of your situations is so different. It's not even funny. You have 5 kids, you're going to be different than if you have no kids. You live in a city like New York or California, and it's going to be very different than if you live in Iowa or wherever it may be. So what you really need to understand is that you should always be funding your retirement accounts. The sooner you could fund, I love Roth IRAs or Roth 401ks or 403bs. You have to make that a priority, and you should absolutely be maxing those out no matter what. In terms of an emergent... You're going to say something?
Well, yeah, just because we have one audience member, Natalie, and she's saying she's barely breaking even because she has extremely high childcare costs and obviously housing costs. So what should a woman like Natalie do when she says that she doesn't even have money to stick into her retirement fund?
First of all, you have to get it where there is a will, there is a way, Natalie. And you have to strike the word can't out of your vocabulary. Seriously. So where are you spending your money? Have you gone through every single penny that you spend? Now, I know that a lot of you think, I am living paycheck to paycheck. I never do anything. I never do this. I am willing to bet every single one of you that there's something that you do with money that you should not be doing. Do you go out to eat every once in a while? Rather than going out to eat, what you should be doing is taking that money and doing what? Putting $10 in a Roth IRA, whatever it may be. But you have to make yourself a number one priority. And if that means you have to get 2 jobs, if that means you have to get 3 jobs, you have to do what you have to do. But you can't use what's happening as an excuse. Now, why can I say that to you? Because out of the 40 years that I've been doing...
That's real. You know, as much as that, you know, we don't want it to be. You have to do what you got to do.
I have watched what women have had to do in 2007, 2008 to keep everything going. You are a strong woman, Natalie. So don't say you can't. You have got to start saying you can and I will, and then you will.
For all of our listeners that say they can and they will, what do you suggest they do with that small savings pile? Do you think it should be in a high yield savings account, a CD, a certificate of deposit? What do you suggest?
I suggest that they should open up a Roth IRA. Listen closely, everybody. And within the Roth IRA, put it in a high yield savings account. So open up an account at a discount brokerage firm, wherever that may be, and then put the money in a high yield savings account. Why? Any money that you originally put into a Roth IRA, you can take out without any taxes or penalties, regardless of your age or how long the money has been in there. So now at least you've started to put money in a retirement account. Hey, if an emergency happens, you just go there and you take it out. It's just that simple. But at least you get into the habit. I would also automate. Meaning I would choose that you do $50 a month, $100 a month, whatever it may be, and automate it, and you will find that you do not miss it. That's how I would start if I was everybody.
You briefly.
I like that, man. So we're gonna get now into the documentary, because that's where the juiciness comes. That's where the juice comes from. But she said a lot of great things. You know, we got to figure out a way to get our bread up, to get our finances, our money up. The national average isn't going to be enough to actually help us save. Even at 50, 60K a year, 15, 20%, if not 25% is going to be taxed. Another third of that is going to be utilized towards your bills. It doesn't leave a whole lot of chunk left, you know, but again, there does leave some, like she said, $5, $10, $50, whatever you can every month. You know, I'm a sucker for it too. I'm spending money all the goddamn time, and some of that money should and could go towards certain savings. But can you really save your way there? Yes, obviously you have to save it, right? Once you get it, you got to save it. But I believe it's saving, of course, but it's mostly increasing that income. If we don't have that income where it needs to be, it's going to make it a whole lot harder for you to save that money, you know, and that's going to be the biggest key, which we'll talk about that here pretty soon. But let's get into this documentary, Fair Use, PBS. It's going to be several different clips from this documentary that I'm going to go into, kind of got some timestamps. But this is called The Retirement Gamble. You need to go watch the whole thing. You'll get a big gist of everything that is being said here today. But, you know, you definitely want to go and watch the whole thing and really internalize what we're dealing with here in America for the future. Well, for now, for some people who are in retirement, and for the future, for us who are coming up on that in the future.
Tonight on Frontline, America's retirement crisis.
It's tough to really worry about retirement right now. I guess plan B would be to keep working.
Smith investigates.
So make it simple.
That's retirement money.
Americans say they can't afford to save for retirement.
All that could hit 401k.
Half of all Americans say they can't afford to save for retirement.
The average retirement fund has lost $12,000.
1/3 have next to no retirement savings at all.
Meeting the need for many Americans to work longer and save more for retirement.
I just don't know if I'll be able to save that much.
People with shrunken retirement
God willing, Social Security will still be there for someone like.
Look at that. $61,000 a year. What did I say? Total savings in his retirement right now, $8K. Now, he's young.
Me, it'll probably be enough to keep me out of poverty.
Retirement fund gets sliced and diced and divvied up for Wall Street to play with.
You know, I'm just going to have to somehow find a way to save 10% of my salary or 15% of my salary, which is probably what I need to actually be saving to have any shot of retiring, you know, not on food stamps. Yeah, I don't know. Hope to be able to retire.
Recently, I've started to look into how to make more money, how to increase my income while.
She's older, she done been putting that berry bread back. She got 115.
Still teaching. It's tough to really worry about retirement right now because I know it's so far off, and I know that worrying and stressing over it is an easy thing to do. But I'm also of the mindset that as long as I don't have too many bills or anything, too many debts, then I could essentially live off of whatever I get. I guess plan B would be to keep working, but I'm really banking on plan A. Otherwise, yeah, no, I don't have a plan B.
It's hard to imagine, even at this point in my life, being retired. I just don't see it. You know, living the American dream of having your house and being able to retire. Nobody has a pension anymore. It wasn't like it was in the 60s or 70s where people worked for, good companies and had a pension plan.
I think that's a harsh reality for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. I do think that we'll be working until, we'll definitely be working until our probably mid-70s. If I had to make unless we can make.
Woo! Some sad things, some sad numbers to see. Sad numbers to see.
Up some big ground soon.
I consider myself middle class. I don't have the luxury of a couple $1 million in savings. The cost of...
He got $500K. And you see him, they show him rolling off on his little motorcycle. He chilling, $500K. That can float you a bit depending on what all you got going. If he's got a part-time income of $25K, it's actually not too bad. That means you can still take care of a lot of your finances. You got $500K sitting there that you can chip away at. He's going to ride his little motorcycle every weekend and fucking eat grilled cheese sandwiches, nigga, and chill. That's what I feel like he's going to do. And I'm not mad at that.
It's going up. Your water bill goes up, your utility bill goes up, your gas bill goes up, your food goes up. Retirees are getting stressed because their nest eggs, their savings, are not producing any income for them. So they're all wondering where they're going to make ends meet. I'm fortunate I can live at a higher standard because I have a little bit of a nest egg in my retirement savings. But others, they're at poverty level.
As for me, I'm almost 65. I started saving for my retirement in my late 20s. But along the way, I dipped into my nest egg, not once, but several times.
So this is my IRA and 401k, and
which will be cleaned out over a certain amount of time.
Right.
And now, like millions of other baby boomers, I too don't have enough.
The key to your...
That's crazy. The dude that's doing the actual, that's hosting the actual program, documentary, or the journalist, also ain't gonna be able to retire. You know what I mean? He's gonna explain it.
Retirement working out is having enough return on your assets.
Most of my savings went to pay for my kids' educations.
You pay for your kids' education. That's a big chunk.
This is where fees would really hurt you badly.
This
as well.
is where fees would hurt you badly. Because
a divorce and the crash of
A divorce and a crash. A divorce. Throw that divorce in there. Ooh.
2008 didn't help either.
Kids pay for their college. And this is what I say, man, that it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing for both because we're seeing men and women here, but it's a hard thing for men because with divorces comes a lot of your expenses going the other way. Now, yes, I do understand. Together, if y'all are coming together with your finances or a life together, then your finances would have helped to sustain her in her retirement years had you made it there. So I do kind of understand that. But in today's times, a lot of these women, according to what they're saying on the internet and some of my own personal experiences, are just way too defiant, way too uncontrollable, way too independent, way too whatever you want to fill in the blank with to the point to where it makes it harder to want to choose to go down the marriage route with them, because the devastating circumstances that it could bring later on. Child support could throw 30, 40, 50, 60K in damages over the years. A divorce could take half of your retirement. All these other things. And it's like, boy, as a man, you sat here, maybe had a family for 20 years, worked your ass off to the bone, doing back-breaking hard labor or whatever you're doing, working sometimes 6-7 days a week, only to get to the end and find out, nigga, keep working, keep going, and then that's how motherfuckers harbor content. That's how people end up off themselves. That's how people, it just can be bad. It can be bad all the way around. So it's crazy.
Like my own personal fiscal cliff.
I'm now planning to work for as long as I possibly can.
So this whole plan is predicated on working full-time until 70.
70 years old, working till 70. Let me just check this real quick, y'all. Working till 70. Dude, man.
Yes.
And at 70,
From age 70 to 75, I have you working part-time.
These days, many baby boomers are planning to delay their retirement. Some may never.
All right, so let's move a little bit further up into the documentary. But that right there, it just already starts it off very grim. I mean, everybody looked like, at least out of the examples they brought up, that they're going to have issues. You got a dude with 8,000, but he still got time. You got a lady with 100K. She don't know what she going to do. But at the same time, she's hoping she can kind of float it. You got these other people unemployed, 80K in the account. Other person had 20K, making 70. Then you got the other dude. He's the one riding his little Harley, have 500K, has a little part-time bread. And then you got him right here. So it really shows a grim look and reality of what we're dealing with here. And a lot of people will suffer in silence. We're such a fucking people that will allow the system to do anything to us, allow jobs and supervisors and managers and the law and other stuff and people to just do whatever and let just be a pushover at times. And then in many cases, we'll blame ourselves before we blame anybody else, because it's just a certain way of human nature today. I don't know. I really don't get it. When we really should be opening our eyes and being able to question everything, so that way we can find out the truth, find out the full story. So then you can try to learn alternative ways to fix the situation, or you may be able to figure out who you need to prosecute or stop taking from you, whatever the case may be. But we can't just sit here and let things go. Now, I'm going to pull up a little bit further, and they're going to talk about like the origins of the 401k system.
And they have to spend a good deal of money, and if the market doesn't do what they hope it will do, they can lose some of the cash that they've actually put in from a funded status standpoint. So it's pretty complex.
One of our major concerns is to protect our accounts against risk.
It was then that corporations found a new loophole in the Internal Revenue Code.
What essentially happens is that the 401k comes in the late 70s, early 80s. It starts as a corporate tax dodge.
The 401k program started as a corporate tax dodge, almost like writing off a car, right? Not that it's a bad thing to have a tax write-off, dodge, loophole, or whatever, but just think about that. Your retirement savings started off as a corporate tax dodge.
Basically, it's if you're a high earner, you're going to put some of your money aside. Nobody ever thought that this was going to apply to the rest of us. I mean, there was never any thought of it.
So not quite by design, a new retirement system was born. Big brokerages and banks saw an opportunity to expand their business and helped employers set up and run their new plans. They promoted the arrangement as a win for everyone.
From the individual perspective, the 401k actually opened up the opportunity to save for retirement for many individuals who worked for businesses that didn't have a pension. And it also allowed them to have a portable, vested amount of money that they could take with them as Americans started changing jobs more frequently.
It's as simple, though, isn't it, as the businesses decided to get out of the business of providing pensions and shift the burden to employees.
I would express that more as a sharing of the responsibility for retirement between employers and employees.
You share it. But as he just said, businesses used to provide pensions for those who work for them, so that way you knew when you worked for a company, by the time you quit, you was gonna have, if you decided to give your life to that company, you were going to be guaranteed some bread. Whereas now it's like they might match the funds. It's 401k plans. It's up to you to put it in there, and we might match it. And so the purpose of them saying that they might match it is them being able to claim, hey, yeah, no, we still provide a savings to you when, you know, and if they do that, you know, many places do match. But if they don't match, it's almost like they're just giving you an account to put your money in and to play the stock market with.
But while some employers contribute to employees' 401k plans, all of the risks fall on the individual.
401k plans really place the burden on the individual participant to have an adequate retirement. And the vast majority of ordinary people don't know how to do that. It's a very complex task.
We wanted them to be able to figure out how much they needed to save for retirement, how to invest that money, and then once they had a lump sum, once they retired, how to withdraw the money so they didn't outlive their assets. So that's 3 different risks.
How to put it in there without having so much, how to invest it without getting some of it taken from you in a loss, and how can you pull it out without taking so many penalties. And I remember this, like nobody really explained 401ks to me when I was in call center jobs in my early mid-20s. You know, nobody explains these things. They just kind of give you a quick, so what do I select here? You know, it's like you're on the screen selecting your yearly benefits, whatever they call it, open enrollment or whatever. And then now in there you're supposed to quickly, you know, make your decisions. And they usually may give you somebody to kind of help you with it, but they just giving you bullet points. Everybody's just throwing out bullet points. Bullet points is enough to get you to do anything. Damn near sign your life away to a bullet point. What is this? What does this do? Oh, well, it just does this, this, and that. That's all you need to worry about. No, I need to see the actual full layout of this shit. Don't just tell me a couple of things and I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess I do like, you know, my money growing. Let me just click this.
Picking and choosing the right investments requires very careful handling.
Enter the mutual fund industry.
People in the mutual fund industry realized that there was a huge opportunity here, right? I mean, not only could they sell their mutual funds, you know, directly to investors, but they could make the mutual funds the very foundation of the 401k plans.
In 1981, nobody knew what a 401k was. By 1989, it's in the lexicon, it's being written about, it's being talked about. Throughout the 90s, now all large employers effectively have plans in place. People are participating. It continues to grow from there.
Start saving $300 a month when you're 23, and you could retire a millionaire.
The boom happened in lockstep with the roaring bull market of the 80s and 90s. Mutual funds were charging high management fees, but nobody seemed to care.
The returns are great. So no one thinks about how much is this costing me when they're earning 15 or 20%.
So we're going to get to that. I'm going to move forward a little bit more. We're going to talk one other part. But as you can see with that, 401k, you know, as much as everybody wants to tout it, I remember people try to tell me forever, put your money in 401k. And, you know, I did for a little bit, and I remember taking that shit right out after I got about like $1,000 in there. What, I can take that out and borrow it? Yeah, but you got to pay it back. And I remember paying it. You pay your back. You pay yourself back with interest. okay, I mean, that sounds cool. It makes you pay you back with interest, but how can I get some interest from these niggas? How can that just have them giving me interest and I'm not even worried about, doing that? And that's, it can happen, but we're going to move forward a little bit here.
And growing.
Internet stocks drove a powerful surge on Wall Street today. Internet stocks suddenly.
The economy was doing great. I mean, you had all kinds of gains in the stock market. That was kind of the dot-com era.
Internet stocks continue their meteoric rise.
You really didn't have to pay attention to, you got your statements at the end of every quarter and you were making money.
It was exciting because gradually over time, we would have a day where we would make $7,000 or and as much as $30,000 in a day as it built, and even more.
In 1996, we had doubled our money. We had almost 500,000.
Now, I'm not gonna profess to know how they got their money, right? And they're gonna talk about damn near hitting $1 million here in a second. But what I will say is, this is how white folks can keep their money. And what do I mean by that? I mean, everybody can keep their money this way. But the white wealth that was passed down by generations and generations throughout the years of slavery and Jim Crow and everything else is what they can utilize these methods in order to keep themselves going. Did you hear him? They just made some days made $7,000 in a day just by having your money in something. And so this also kind of gives you an idea on why you might see so many of those people, you know what I'm saying? It seems like they just don't have a job, you know what I'm saying? Or they might work very little, or some may invest into businesses and things and start doing other things, but some of them seem like they never go anywhere and they're always just doing their own thing around the house and going to Home Depot and shit. And why is that? Because Mr. Smith has a family wealth, and if you look up the average mean and median wealth for white families, it's very high up there. I want to say, I'm not going to get into it, but maybe 300. I think on average they have like $250K to $300K in wealth on average, and then also the mean, if not the median, is like 900-something thousand. So they got bread to play with. A vast majority of them. There's still quite a bit of them that may not, but a vast majority of them have bread to play with. And you take that generational wealth and you put it in systems like this over time that allows them to keep that shit going. As you heard right there, they're like, oh, it's going up, it's going up, it's going up. But also, unfortunately for them, there are situations here put out there that will probably make that go down, because anybody that has a lot of money is eventually going to have systems and stuff to get put out there that's going to try to prey on you. And it's going to be up to you to stay informed heavily in order to keep the scammers out of your motherfucking life. So let's go a little bit further here.
The dot-com failures continue to mount.
Skoczynski not only lost her savings, she lost her job.
Cisco today filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection, including another 200 job cuts, or
joined a who's who list of corporate bankruptcies for 2000.
The day I got laid off, I lost it. I thought, oh my God, I'm a single parent. I have no job. I have a house payment. What do I do? And I was scared. Really scared. I didn't have much of a retirement left. I couldn't even borrow against it. And it was just something that I never foresaw, ever. Losing my job, ever. Never.
The worst was yet to come.
Concerns about shaky home mortgages are triggering fears of a financial meltdown. Talk about the speed with which we are watching.
8 years later, savers were hit again.
And the mortgage market is far from over.
This is volatility we haven't seen, of course, since way before you and I were born.
More trouble ahead for the nation.
When the housing bubble turned into the crash of 2008, It put retirement even further out of reach.
The economic turmoil of recent years is putting a comfortable retirement at risk for many Americans.
It was like, holy smokes, how do you stop the bleeding?
The reality of what you've lost is huge.
Right.
I mean, not only have you now lost half of your 401k, but your house is not worth anything anymore either. So anything that you thought you were going to have there is gone, and now half of your 401k is gone.
You know, if it took 13 years to accumulate $80,000 and 1 year to lose half of that, and then try to get that back in another 13 years and only be at the $80,000 that you were 13 years ago, the math doesn't work.
Woo! You got to think about that, man. And they said from the housing crash. So you got to think, the housing crash caused your money to fall? Yeah, because you're putting your money into the stock market system. The 401k allows you to put your money into these systems, and those systems can go up, and they also can go down, which will affect your savings. But people ain't telling you that. You know, I remember signing up, and everybody keeps saying, yeah, man, you know, mines keep going up. Okay, well, when does it go down? You know what I mean? I remember having these questions, but I didn't really have any answers back then, or nobody to tell me answers. And then I remember somebody tried to show me, and they was like, I got this stock and that stock. They didn't even know what the fuck they was talking about. They were just looking at the screen and reading off shit, in my opinion. But, you know, it's sad because you look at that. I mean, they saved up $80K, which is a lot, but it ain't enough. But then to have that a lot, not enough, be taken because of the market, and like he said, you got to try to scrounge that back over the next years. I mean, and he probably accumulated that in his better years, his more virile and physical ability, the years he had the most physical ability to be able to be out there pushing labor to make that money. I can't talk today. So it's a grim reality, and people are not understanding. Not only is it hard to save, not only do you have to save a lot, but there's systems in place like the 401k, which can make it even harder at times, and you never know when it's gonna happen. To make that, and let's say they foresaw it happening. Let's say they say, man, you know, I think the market's about to crash. Let me pull my money. Then you got a penalty just to take it out. So you have to leave it in there and let it get played with. That's insane. You know what I'm saying? And when you have about 30 to 40 years that you have to do this, America has proven time and time again that motherfucker is gonna crash. Okay? Multiple crashes in my own lifetime. So, damn, what do you do? What do you do? We'll talk about that. Let's move a little bit further. Actually, it's about to come up on it.
Debbie Skoczynski was already in a hole with next to nothing to cushion the blow of a second shock. And now her house was worth less than the loan she owed the bank.
You know, there's some days where it's like, you just want to go scream, you know, in the backyard and just scream because you have your choice. Do you pay this or do you pay this?
Her bills were piling up. She did what a quarter of Americans have done. She dipped into what was left of her 401k.
I freaked out when I took the money out of my 401k. It was hard. I mean, it's, you know, every day on the news, I'd listen to it and I'd be like, oh, God, it's really bad. Will I be able to keep my house? Well, you know, what if my car breaks down? I can't afford a car payment. It just can't be this hard to make I can't. You know, you hear these big companies with these people taking these huge bonuses. You're thinking, well, what happened to the average Joe? They just don't care. They've made their money already.
Growing outrage over those bonuses.
The year the markets crashed, Wall Street doled out $18 billion in bonuses.
The latest bonus bombshell is sending shockwaves across Washington.
Robert Hilton Smith entered the workforce in 2003. He taught for a bit, worked at a coffee shop, and then went to grad school, where he ran up $40,000 in student loans. But on the bright side, he had no savings to lose during the 2008 crash. When he graduated with a master's in economics, he was hired at a small think tank in New York. They had a 401k, and he began to make regular contributions. But even in a relatively good market, he began to sense that something else was wrong.
I have a 401k, I save in it. It hasn't seemed to go up. It's awful. I kept checking the statement. I'd be like, why does this thing never go up? This is weird. I mean, the stock market I knew was up and down, but I was like, I still should be seeing some returns.
Hilton Smith decided to make a research project out of the subject. He began by looking at the investment options inside his 401k plan, 22 funds in all.
You know,
and let me say this shit real quick about the stock market. It's not that goddamn hard to be in the stock market, to play the stocks. Okay, a broker is nothing but a salesperson who's a middleman that allows you to buy the goddamn stock, and he's going to take a fee. You have money managers, typically, that want to sit here and manage your fund or manage a portfolio or whatever of money that you allow them to, you give them in order to make decisions on where to put that money, and they're going to take a fee as well. But regardless of that, just the stock market in general is just basically looking for a company that you think is going to rise and putting money into that company. And when that company rises, so will your bread. It's not that hard. You don't need no special courses or fucking people want to sell you all this shit all the time on how to invest and this and that and day trading. Day trading ain't nothing but the same thing, but you just day trading is just taking the same stock. You bought it, you think that, in a sense, but you're taking a stock that you're going to buy. You hopefully buy it low, and you're hopefully going to trade it, but at the end of the day, at a higher number. Or you're going to probably have a portfolio of stocks, and you're always buying them and selling them on a daily basis. Tomorrow, you're going to sell the ones that are high, especially if you think they're going to fall at some point in time. But really, you don't want to do day trading because that's an everyday thing. You want to do long-term trading. And long-term trading is just putting your money in. I think Apple's going to do great. So I put my money in Apple, and when it does great, maybe I'll do great. If it sucks, maybe then I'll suck. But, my money will go down. But it's really that simple. I don't have any money in any stocks because I don't believe in it. Not that I don't believe in it. I take that back. I do believe in it. Because what do people do with their stocks? They take that money and then they use that to invest in things into the company in order to try to generate more income and profits to be able to pay out dividends to their people over time. So basically, when you take your money and you give it to them, if they can make more money with it, then they'll go ahead and give you a slice. And that's all you're doing in the stock market. Finding you a company, hopefully put some money into them, and they're hopefully going to give you a slice of that bread. And then you own a piece of that company, and you can sell that stock later, if you just want to get some of your money back. And plus, it might grow over time. So it's not hard. It's like finding companies that you think, like for me, if I'm kind of a nerd, so I stay up on electronics. So like when Tesla announced that they were going to open up a new factory in China and shit, which is now open and shit. But, at that point, and he started talking about opening up more factories, then to me, yeah, your average Joe would be like, okay, I need to invest in a Tesla stock, right? Your more informed person is going to be like, I need to invest in components and resources that the Tesla is going to need in order to make its cars. What do I mean by that? If you knew who the battery manufacturer was for Tesla, right now it might be Tesla, but let's say there's a battery manufacturer that makes all their batteries. But if they just announced that they're going to open up a new, factory in overseas, then obviously I'm going to expect that they're going to buy a whole lot more batteries. Now, whether or not they sell those batteries, whether or not they sell those cars, is going to be determined on them. That is by having a Tesla stock. If they sell the cars greatly, then I'll get some bread off of that. But if I have the stock on the person that sold them the batteries, whether or not they sell the motherfucking cars, if they buy a shit ton of batteries and got cars just sitting on the lot, I got money off the company who makes the batteries. You know what I mean? So You know, you might find the people who make the fabrics for them, or who make, you know, and not all of them might be publicly exchanged like that too. So, you know, it takes some time to just think about and find companies and try to find good opportunities to buy stocks in. But for the most part, that's what the stock market is. Buy the shit when it's, and hopefully it's low. You know, when they say about that, hopefully you can buy it for $1, and hopefully maybe tomorrow, you know, in a year or two, it's worth $300 per share, and you know that kind of can help. You know, that'll definitely mean that you're doing good, you're growing your money. But that's really what the stock market is. You know, it's just the reason why I say I don't believe in it, which I do believe in it, but I believe more in investing into businesses. Period. I like the idea of the stock market, because I do like the idea of a public exchange where all your information has to be out there. So when people invest into your company, they get to see all the financials and stuff like that or whatever. But like I said, all the companies aren't on the public exchange. So, you know, me personally, I'd rather invest in like Joe Schmo's auto shop that I might know. You know, me and Joe's cool. He's about to open up an auto shop. One, I feel like I'm doing a friend a favor instead of a corporation a favor. And two, you know, I might be able to get a larger return just depending on what kind of agreement we set up, you know, versus starting off with a stock that is devalued very much so because you have to buy tons of the shares in order to get any kind of good return. With Joe Schmo's shop, he might be like, man, look, man, if you could just give me, I just need some money to get a lift, or this or that or whatever, and that's what's gonna make me. I'm willing to give you 15% of the company revenue over 5 years if you do that. Well, then that's cool. You know what I'm saying? Now, maybe he may not make any money. Maybe he might lose. Maybe he's a horrible business person and he can't get customers. Well, I mean, I'm gonna take a loss. But you're gonna take a loss. You're gonna have some risk one way or the other. I'd rather risk and help a friend. Of course, you know, that could put some strain on the friendship. So, you know, versus stock market. But think about it. Start thinking about your friends like the stock market. If he loses, let it go. If you're not gonna go fucking beat up the stock market people, you know, because your shit got lost, then you need to let Joe Schmo get over it. You know what I'm saying? Get over it with Joe Schmo. I mean, you know, not let him get over it, but get over it with Joe Schmo as well. You know, don't take it so far. You know, there's risk involved. You deal with those risks, and you're gonna. But you also have a way. Now you have a little bit personal help, or you have personal interest, and maybe you can be a personal help to them. Like you can't go to these stock market management whatevers and companies that's in these index funds and shit, and be like, hey, I see y'all going down. What can I do to help? You know what I'm saying? I got some good ideas. They're gonna be like, nigga, get your motherfucking ass out this office, unless you're a majority shareholder. But you know, Mr. Joe Schmo's auto shop that you just helped, business start going down there. You can help with maybe some advertisement dollars or some, you know, whatever, different options and stuff that you can give them instead of just sitting back and just refreshing your screen, hopefully hoping that things are going to go up. So that was a lot to say.
Got all these names, and the names tell you nothing. It's a balanced fund. It's a growth fund. Okay, you know, yes, that's lingo for certain kind of broad investment strategy, but really, what the heck does it invest in? You know, so I went through each of these, the actual fund prospectuses, which took me an exorbitant amount of time because each of these things were, you know, 50 pages long. They still wouldn't tell you what they were doing.
As he dug deeper, he discovered one fund invested in mortgage-backed securities, the kind of security that caused the collapse of the housing market. But that's not what worried him.
I was digging into all the different aspects of it, and I kept coming back to fees. So here's the first mention of fees. This X ratio right here. Why would you think that X ratio means fees?
Hilton Smith found over a dozen different kinds of fees, including asset management fees, trading fees, marketing fees, record-keeping fees, and administrative fees.
Fees when you withdraw money, fees when you take loans, fees when you actually get money.
And you got to think about this. Fees in your 401k. And you wouldn't have even known. Most people have no clue that there are fees, money management fees, coming out of your 401k, which is effectively taking bread away from your retirement and paying somebody. Those fees are going somewhere, right? And they're going to keep going into them. But just think about that. Somebody said that they got to get a little fee off of this. This money you putting in here, I'm going to need a little bit of that.
Out when you're retired, which I actually didn't even know about. I spent a month literally going, oh, actually this fee is a subtype of this fee, and that covers that, or no, that's another name for that. It was very opaque.
The average actively managed mutual fund carries an annual expense of 1.3%. Some funds charge a fee of 2%, and even as high as 5%.
That may
sounds little, very little.
Seem very much, right? You know, you've got $50,000 or $100,000, and okay, so you lose $500 or you lose $1,000 a year. That's what you would pay to a financial advisor, right? But if you add that up over 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 years in a 401k plan, all of a sudden you're well into the six figures as your balance grows. And that's the difference between running out of money before you die or having a little money left to pass on to your heirs.
A lot of 401k programs are lousy. The fund choices stink. The fees are outlandishly high. And in many cases, you can take two next-door neighbors, living on Maple Street in any town, USA, and one person is paying 10 times as much to invest in a 401k as the other person.
To understand this fee business, I went to talk to someone who has thought long and hard about it. Jack Bogle, the founder of Vanguard, a company that offers some of the lowest fee products on the market. He says that if you want to improve your retirement outcome, make sure to minimize Wall Street's take.
Costs are a crucial part of the equation. It doesn't take a genius to know that the bigger the profit of the management company, the smaller the profit that investors get. The money managers always want more, and that's natural enough in most businesses, but it's not right for this business.
Exactly, because it's savings for your retirement, not just a regular savings to get a car or fees to just grow and invest just to make extra money. Like, this is literally people's savings accounts for retirement.
Bogle gave me an example. Assume you're invested in a fund that is earning a gross annual return of 7%. They charge you a 2% annual fee. Over 50 years, the difference between your net of 5%, the red line, and what you would have made without fees, the green line, is staggering. Bogle says you've lost almost 2/3 of what you would have had.
Out of fees, because of management fees, you will lose almost 2/3 of what you would have fucking had. That's a scam.
What happens in the fund business is the magic of compound returns is overwhelmed by the tyranny of compounding costs. It's a mathematical fact. There's no getting around it. The fact that we don't look at it, too bad for us.
What I have a hard time understanding is that 2% fee that I might pay to an actively managed mutual fund is going to really have a great impact on my future retirement savings.
Well, you have to rely on somebody to get out a compound interest table and look at the impact over an investment lifetime. Do you really want to invest in a system where you put up 100% of the capital, you the mutual fund shareholder, you take 100% of the risk, and you get 30% of the return?
I wanted to know how others would react to Bogle's claims. J.P. Morgan Chase offers more than 100 mutual funds that charge anywhere from less than half of 1% to more than 2.5% annually. I want to get your reaction to an example that
Jack Bogle gave us, and that is that if you invest over a 50-year investing lifetime in a mutual fund, making 7% a year on average, but you're paying 2% in fee for that, that 2% will erode something like 2/3 of your gains.
That's crazy. And this is what they do, is not only do they have these reports, big managed funds, make it all hard to understand, but these interest numbers are always something low. That's something I always used to question and have be pissed off about, and people could never really explain it to me. And nobody really still has fully explained it. And I may have to do a video about interest and how it's calculated, why, what, all this other shit. But like for the main part, like one is APR, one is, so that's annual percentage rate, or then there's another one. But then there's some people like some companies just might, some companies just might charge you 10% on the loan, period. Like I've had a business loan through Square, and let's say, they gave me $10K and they wanted to charge me, just to keep it simple, 10% interest. Well, they show in the paperwork on there, the 10% interest off that $10K was going to be about $1,000, right? Excuse me. So I know that I'm paying them $1,000 of a fee to get this 10K. Whereas with some of these 1% APR, this, that, 7% this, compounds, whatever, because it's like what they're saying is you get a 7% compound interest, but this 2% fee also somehow has a reverse compounding effect, a negative compounding effect, I should say. And that really starts to pull away from that 7%, so much so that you don't even realize it, that it's almost 2/3, which you would think, wait a minute, 2% isn't 2/3 of 7%. So how the fuck is it 2/3 of my 7%? You thinking, well, y'all taking 2%, I'm still getting 5%, so it is what it is. But no, somehow it works itself out differently. We're gonna see.
So the lower fees relative to any given investment will always result in higher accumulation.
But is his example correct? I mean, it's shocking that you would be giving up 2/3 of your...
So I don't know the math behind the example.
But does it sound correct?
Citing. It sounds high.
It is high, like me.
It had sounded high to me as well. So I took Bogle's advice, found a compounding calculator online, and used a simple example in order to isolate the effect of fees. Take an account with a $100,000 balance and reduce it by 2% a year. At the end of 50 years, that 2% annual charge would subtract $63,000 from your account, a loss of 63%, leaving you with just a little over $36,000.
In fees! Fucking
Most
fees!
investors are unaware of all the types of fees they're paying.
Okay, so as soon as everybody's actually seated, we'll go over what's going on.
Crystal Mendez started saving for retirement in her early 20s, but she rarely looked at her account and just assumed it was doing well.
One day, my fiance was looking at his retirement, and he was essentially bragging about how great he was doing. So I pulled out my annual report, and we kind of compared notes, and I realized that he was doing far better than I was. He basically said, honey, I think you're getting ripped off. We should look into this.
It's crazy, man. And you gotta think, that fee is coming out for multiple years. So somebody's been getting paid off of her bread for maybe 20, 30 years. Been getting just little chunks, not even little, large chunks of your money. And this person, broker, company, whatever, bank, these niggas have multiple people. So if you're getting, think about this, salesmen get residual commissions all the time where they get a percentage of your monthly recurring charge from something they sold you. So let's say they sold you cell phone service, you pay $100 a month, they get a commission of 2%, of the lifetime of you being a customer. So now they're getting 2% of that $100 every single month, $2 a month, which that ain't a lot, but that's different. This ain't no compounded interest situation I'm coming up with, but they get that. But then they have a lot more people that they get under their belt, so now they have a lot of residuals, so they have a ton of income coming in, and they don't have to do shit. It's just coming in, and that's fine. That's actually the way you're supposed to do it. But to sneak it in through fees like this, through people's retirement accounts that they don't even fucking look at, and they don't even explain these fees, people like this should fucking be thrown under the goddamn jail. I can't stand this shit, man. It's like it's scamming on a whole nother legal and literal level. Literary level, like these accountants are smart and they come up with this shit. They come up with these systems, these numbers, and get you to sign things. And I don't know, 2% don't seem like much to me. I'm not gonna think that 2% is gonna take shit out of my motherfucking account like that.
After looking at the fine print, Mendez found out that not only was she paying high fees, she was invested in an annuity with a high surrender fee, a penalty for any early withdrawals.
I think it was 10% was the surrender fee. So I was like, battling with myself. Do I really want to give these people my money or leave it there and then I won't have a surrender fee? But I think in the end, I just said, forget it.
And we're going to talk about this last part, and then we're going to go over some things. Oops, sorry, guys.
Expertise to provide advice.
What's a financial advisor?
That is a term that means almost nothing. It is somebody who might be a financial planner, or it could be a broker who is really a salesperson.
There when you need them.
There are registered investment advisors or fiduciaries who are obligated by law to act in their clients' best interests.
Let's talk about the cookie-cutter retirement advice you get at some places.
But the vast majority of so-called advisors, around 85%, are not fiduciaries.
85% of the financial advisors out there are not fiduciaries, meaning they are not certified through testing by the government to give you financial advice and be bound to by the law for and they can be reprimanded by the law if they give you bad advice. So there's a guy named JT, Pocket Watcher with JT, and he talks about this all the time. He's a certified financial planner, or he's fiduciary. He's definitely a fiduciary, but as you can see on here, 85% of them are not. 85% of them, they're going to say it, but I'll say it now, are brokers. Brokers is just another word for salesperson. Fancy name for salesperson. There's somebody who wants to sell you a 401k or mutual fund or Roth IRA or whatever the hell with some kind of fees, and they're going to make a residual fee off of each one of those for managing your funds, or really just let them sit there and grow over time. So one thing I want to bring up with this is, in the black community, we're always trying to tell each other we the ones that scam each other. Oh, it's really bad in the black community though. Nigga, scamming is everywhere. People scam all the time. People scam of all colors and races, and white folks scam more than any others. They put it in a motherfucking systems. They build a fucking scam system with loopholes and scammer shit inside of it to get your ass. On top of that, the stock market. PBS did a Frontline documentary about the stock market being fucking, I'm getting too excited. The stock market being a big ass motherfucking scam in many cases. In situations, a lot of these stock market companies have these other companies that give you insider trading that you have to pay for, you know what I'm saying, tips, which technically that's illegal, but they call them something else, like they're management funds, stock management. Well, I'm gonna have to watch it again, but they got a particular name for them. But mostly they just go out. You have a lot of people in the stock market have these certain people have these companies, and these companies give them advice on what to invest in, or really it's insider trading advice. And they take it and they can do better than some of y'all. But the fucked up part is they also give bad advice on purpose in many cases and cause people to lose money, but they don't have any kind of they don't get reprimanded for it. But at the same time, they also are working off of these fees. Their whole purpose is mostly to get a bunch of these fees as well. So it's scamming all throughout the motherfucking United States. And black people, we scam just as much. So, not just as much, I won't say that. See, we gotta watch our words, especially on public platforms. If I sit here and say, black people, we scam just as much as everybody else, people are gonna run with that shit. I don't have any information that validates that. In many cases, when you look at the motherfucking, actually I do remember looking at the FBI reports of the crime data statistics, and in many cases, we wasn't scamming as much as everybody else. The white folks got way more larceny charges, way more fucking embezzlement charges, way more fucking, other charges. We got burglary and robbery or some shit, more primitive forms of taking people's money. But they have a hell of a lot more percentage of people who do other crimes that are definitely against their own kind. They fuck with us as well, of course, but they definitely scam their own kind all the time. But you don't never hear somebody do say, "Oh man, we the worst. We scam the white people all the time. We always scamming white folks." No, man. A scammer is a scammer is a scammer. And let's talk about him being a scammer and the situation of the scamming, and let's come up with a solution to not have to deal with it and to circumvent these scammers. But if you sit there all day, once JT or whoever starts talking about a scammer, going into this long dialogue about how black folks need to do better and we the worst kind, you're just wasting fucking time with juvenile ass, small-minded ass talking points that ain't getting you nowhere, because you're not going to be able to go up to all black folks and tell them to do better. No, nigga. So we need to figure out how the scam is being caused and maybe put up some law to maybe circumvent that scam or to stop scammers that are doing certain things. Then you don't have to go to the rest of the public and let them know it's like that. There will be a law out there. And in a sense, you still got to let people know out there that there's a law out there and how they can use it, because still, a scammer can still go scam somebody, and it's still up to that person to even know that the law exists to use it. Unless we have like a force out there that's purposely going out there to investigate and find these people proactively, which I don't see that happening. So people, of course, still have to stay informed, but it is a lot better for us to fight the situation than to fight this ideology of black people need to do better fuckery, So anyways.
Funds makes them more money, which makes you wonder, isn't that a conflict?
They are merely brokers or salesmen.
A fiduciary is a professional who, by law,
we don't have to go back into it, but to the rest of this, and I'm pretty much done with this documentary. There's a lot still more in there, but you got the gist of it, right? Right here, they're talking about that, but because on top of that, now that we've gotten out of the whole portion of you being the sole person who's most important of taking care of your financial responsibilities for retirement, and you have 401ks and Roth IRAs and things that you're trying to figure out and trying to manage this shit, trying to think about, you need somebody to tell you about these fees and compound fees and tell you what fees to watch out for and what companies to go after, whatever, So now that gets us over to what they were talking about right here, which is financial advisors, which most of them are salesmen to get you into the other shit. 85% of them are just salesmen to sell you the shit that's full of fees, whereas you have 15% or so that are bound by the government to give you what's advice that's in your best interest. So they're gonna probably tell you about the low fees and all this other stuff. So that just gets me to the point, that there are so many obstacles in the way of getting in your retirement, and you got to think about it. It makes sense. Anywhere there's a big pool of money that's going to be sitting anywhere, people are going to try to figure out a way to get some of that. You know what I mean? So a lot of these people in these banks and stuff sitting around in these funds and stuff are, sitting around trying to come up with other ways to come up with new programs to get a little bit more of that bread out your account. And I think that's sad. When that's the way you decide to live your life, is by penny pinching, not even pennies, by dollar pinching off of motherfuckers, dollar grabbing, dollar hauling off people's retirement accounts. And I mean, you got to think this is leaving people later on in their most elderly, their most vulnerable years on stuck mode. And that's fucked up. In many cases, the person who stole it probably ain't even going to be here long enough to see the people he stole it from, go through retirement. I hope not. I hope that motherfucker dies a slow death. But regardless of that, I don't want to take up a whole lot more time, but I do want to talk a bit about what's the plan? If we do the math, and if I save my 15%, and I'm barely gonna get to a certain number, then what can I hope for as an individual or what do I need to do in order to prepare myself? Well, I'm not definitely any kind of financial planner. I don't have all the answers. I have no education in the field, but I got common sense, and I have some information that I don't mind trying to throw out, some information or advice. Definitely not financial advice, but I do believe that times are changing. Times have changed to where things are a lot higher than they used to be, obviously, and they're going to take a lot more. It's going to take a lot more to get us into this retirement. And when you look at the national average of how much people are making per year at 46, 50, 60K per year, it's just going to be hard to save 10, 20, 30% of that and not have any issues along the way. You heard all the issues, these people dipping into their 401ks, paying for their kids' colleges, paying, taking money out of their house, being unemployed, getting laid off to where they have to start dipping into taking money out and doing this and that. So, I mean, there's always things that are gonna rise up. So it's like we have to figure out another way to bring in way more income than 60-something K. At this particular point, kind of what Susie Orman was saying earlier, now that we looked at everything and we saw all those clips from earlier, all those clips was telling us that we need to do better. We need to take advantage of these accounts. They didn't talk about fees. There was one guy that said something about a low fee account. One of those that I can remember. He said, get you a low fee account. Now, still, that doesn't explain to you the whole differences of what is considered a low fee, how much do the fees actually take out of my accounts and all that, out of my money and all this other stuff. But at least he did say it. But most of them were just telling you, hey, you're going to need this to retire, and most of those clips were also saying that most people don't have it, which this shows that too. A lot more of a reality was being shown through the documentary about it. But, here we are, is in a new day and age, and 40, 50, 60K a year is just not going to get you to retirement. If two of y'all are together and you have a family, that could help. But once you throw kids in the mix, dude, it's hard. Your wife's not going to work as much. You're going to not bring in as much over time. And then you have the added expenses of kids and their entire life. And that's 18 years of each one that you have to bring in and support and still support afterwards. So, it's very, very hard to think how can you get there. But in my opinion, we're gonna have to become self-employed as much as possible. We're going to have to start looking back into getting into doing our own businesses and services and things of that nature. Now, everybody can't do it, but the more of us that can, the more better it will be. And why am I talking about that? Because typically, if you can come up with businesses where you can make a decent amount of money per transaction, you don't need a whole lot of customers in order to make way more money than the 40, 50, 60K per year. And then when you start making more money, now you can save more money, right? That's the main thing, is we need to get to a point to where we can make a lot more money as soon as possible. And so let's say if you have a business and each transaction is $100. Well, if you can figure out a way to do 3 transactions a day, that's $300 a day. $300 a day, 5 days a week, 1,500, 52 weeks in a year, that's 78,000. You know what I'm saying? So that's at least got you up there. But if you can figure out a way to get $200 per transaction, and you get basically double the same thing, exact same thing, then you can be up in the 150s. You know, so let's say if you do a $150 job. And what kind of job do I mean by that? I mean, you could be cutting somebody's yards, could be decently sized yards for 100. You could be not a barber, a stylist. You can do car detailing. You can do pressure washing. You can do some kind of accounting work. You can do all kind of services, shoe cleaning services, dry cleaning, personal chef. That'd be kind of hard to get a lot of customers every day for. But, you know, multiple just things that we used to be able to do and we still can. But it was hard to get clients, and everybody's done gotten settled into these jobs to where it's more about just being comfortable at a job and having some kind of security. But what kind of security do you really have, you know, at 40, 60, 50, 70, 40, 50, 60K a year? You don't really have a lot of security. The only security you got is knowing that that shit's gonna keep coming and you can pay at least the things you've been paying, you know? And so investing into yourself and investing into starting a business is gonna allow you to utilize your own services and your own labor and ability and smarts to be able to make more money. Now, this is just you working. Let's say, like I said, you can do twice that, make about $600 a day. Now you're 5 days a week. Now you're making around like 150 plus K a year, you know. And at 150K a year, you can definitely start to save. You know, as long as you don't go too far with your expenses and start upping everything like crazy, you can definitely start to save a lot better than the person at 40, 50, 60K. You know, if you can somehow still live your life at 40, 50, 60K, but still somehow bring in that 150, you're doing even way better and start saving even more. So the reason why I talk about this, another thing that we need to do, and Susie Orman kind of went into it, is to try to buy the things that you need and pay them off before you even get to retirement. So like a house. Instead of trying to buy a house on a 30-year mortgage where you're going to probably end up paying twice the amount of the house anyway. So now a $300,000 house is going to cost you $600,000. Try to figure out a way to buy that bitch cash. You know, it may be hard to do that though. You can buy it on a 30-year mortgage and try to pay it off faster, or buy it on a 15-year mortgage, try to pay it off, something like that. But the main thing is, like she said, you want to pay it off, because you don't want $1,000 a month, $700 a month, $1,500 a month still plaguing you in your 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. And if you can get you some decent cars paid off at that time too, some cars you really don't mind going into your retirement on and rolling, then that will help too, because that's one of the next biggest costs. And then you can save all your money for normal expenses and medical expenses, and you know, kind of try to chip away at your shit over the next 20 years for retirement. So like, there's ways that we can kind of go about and maybe get through this, but it's just one of those hard things that you're likely going to get sucked into one of these things. You're likely going to get sucked into the 401k first, or mutual plan fund, or you know, Roth IRAs or whatever. You're probably going to get sucked into some of those first. And it kind of sucks because, yes, we should start early, but as you saw, some of these people started early and they lost some money. Some people started early and they made. But you know, it's really hard to say when you're putting your money out there that way. In my opinion, we need to start more businesses. I didn't finish saying what I was saying, but if you put your own work into that and you make it 150 a year, and you can figure out how to get some more clients, now you can hire people, and you can pay them, and you can actually pay them decent. You don't have to pay them 40, 50, 60K a year. You don't have to follow the path that everybody else did. You know, in many cases, you can, depending on what you're doing, you can maybe hire a contractor and pay them a certain percentage of the sale. And I'd rather go 50-50 to 50 to give them 60% or 50% of the sale. You know what I mean, of the job, especially if they're doing it completely themselves, and I'm not really putting any work in on it. You know, so this is stuff that we got to think for the future. In today's time with the internet, there's so many ways to start businesses. There's so many businesses to start, so many ways to get yourself seen through the internet, not only just through social media, but through advertisement, search engine optimizations, and things of that nature. But regardless of all that, we have to do something. We as a people have to figure out a way to keep us from getting into this problem where we're not going to be able to retire. It's not fun, it's not cool, and in many cases, it's probably going to cause suicide rates to go even higher, because the closer some people get to that retirement or are in that retirement and they're not having the finances and they're running low, and now they're, like me personally, I can't rely on other people. I'm just too much of a loner, too much of a independent mindset. I got to do this ego-driven type person that if I get into my 60s, 70s, and I don't have any money, and I have to go ask people, ask family, ask whatever for help, I mean, that's going to make me feel mentally, my mental is still going to be there, no matter what my physical is looking like. And that's going to really affect me mentally, you know, and I think that affects a lot of people mentally who get into that state. So we're going to have to figure out a better way that we can deal with this retirement issue in America at some point. Right now, I just believe it's going to be swept under the rug. How many people have watched the retirement gamble so far? 5.7 million, but it's PBS. PBS is pretty good about getting some views. But, we got to do a lot better. We got to figure out something, and something that can be, I feel like it's some stuff out there, but the 401k, again, it's got so many different fees, issues, plaguing it and stuff. And the Roth IRA only allows you to put $6,000 a year in there, and if that's the max, you're not going to save all the way to retirement with that. So at that point, it's either throwing money in the stock market, like you're saying, throwing it in an interest-bearing account for savings to add a little bit more. Or what I believe people should do is to invest in other people. If you invest in 10 of your friends and, 2 or 3 of them make it to do really, really, really well, and you can get a little bit of kickback off of all just those 2, 3 people, you know what I'm saying? That might do you even better. Like that guy was saying to the host on PBS earlier, when he was telling him that your assets, you have to be bringing in more money when you get into your retirement years. You need your assets bringing in money. And your assets can be businesses that you have a stake in. Your assets could be homes that you can liquidate if you need to, or that they're bringing in money so that you're renting them out and they're adding to your income or things of that nature. So, or just other things too. I'm sure there's other assets. If you got a boat, you rent out the boat or whatever the case. So, in this case, it could be businesses. To be honest, that's really going to be the only thing to break you away from the normal employee world. Employees aren't making that much money in many fields. So if you want to break those glass ceilings of income, you're really going to have to get into a world of being independent. You can get there through some jobs, but most jobs is going to be, even some of the top IT jobs is getting you over 100K with just a little over 100K per year, So I'm always going to be here to advocate for us to do more, better, and for us to try to find ways to circumvent this retirement issue, lack of capital issue, business startup issues, and things of that nature. So I'm here for you. I'm here with you, trying to find it together, and I think in the future we'll find what we're looking for.